Hey, how's it going? Welcome to another weekly TIT with me, Amanda Gold. TIT stands for Try It Tuesday. Um, it is just one of my videos that I make that's about coming up with a real life exercise or practice or thing you can try to coach yourself or to feel better or to practice your art or whatever. Because we're talking about women in sobriety who want to be more creative is mostly what this channel is about. But there's something for everyone I hear here, I think. But yeah, mainly if you are a sober woman who's looking to enhance your recovery or bring more artistic freedom or creativity into your life, then you have found a great place to explore that. And today all this month and really for the rest of my life, I'm deeply committed to anti-racist work, recommitted, I should say. Really interested in how to make this something that I'm going to practice and implement for the long haul and not just when the country's in an uproar over the most recent blatant, obvious instance of racism, but really letting it sink in and owning and moving forward with the knowledge that this shit has been happening since this country began and it's not going away without our active participation and outspokenness and commitment to do better. So I'll be talking about this a lot moving forward, but especially this month, I wanted to stay really on the topic of anti-racist work. And yeah, so I was thinking about that today and I was thinking about creativity and using art prompts to work through our feelings. And so I wanted to offer some examples of ways that you can use art and creativity to navigate some of the hairy and unpleasant emotions that are coming up during this time for a couple reasons. One, probably the most important, is like being in support of Black lives and being an ally to Black people and people of color, but we're talking about Black lives mostly is what's up now. In order to support them, we need to handle our emotions in an appropriate way. And when we talk about white fragility, this is one of the things we see and how it manifests. Robin DiAngelo calls it in her book. She talks about white lady tears, or I think that's something like that, white women's tears. And the problem with it, it's not that we have emotions. It's not that it's hard for us to, it's not necessarily bad that we feel guilty or that we feel ashamed or that I am grieving over George Floyd's death as well, and it's sad and it's tragic, and I feel the pain of what Black people are going through. That's okay. Like, that has its place, and I need to work through that. The way it becomes a problem is when I let those emotions come out in a way that continues to keep me as a white person centered and shuts down conversation that we could be having to dismantle racism. So you see this a lot in like cultural competency places or when we're talking about diversity situations where one white person's emotions kind of take the front of the room and Black people are again pushed to the side and their needs are pushed to the side, or they're left to carry like an unfair amount of emotional labor to soothe us now. Like it suddenly flips back onto us, like, look how bad I feel. And then people are patting you on the back and so I wanted to offer today something to sort of like honor that you might be having some really big feelings as a white person around this work and give you an activity or a couple activities and suggestions for you to manage those on your own in private where it's more appropriate so that you can process them and deal with them and then show up for your Black brothers and sisters with more capacity to be there for them and not make it all about you. Not saying you are, but a lot of people do, and I have done this in the past, and this is part of my work today as doing anti-racist work. It's like tending to my emotions in an appropriate way so that I can show up better in the world and have these conversations with more capacity without dissolving into tears and making it all about me. Yeah, and as a person, I do believe that our feelings are valid and I do believe they deserve to be felt and honored. And I don't think this work will progress if we're just feeling like guilty and shame and like having to smash down all our emotions or else we're a bad, shitty white person. So I want to offer something today that's going to help you work through that stuff and feel better. And then we can go about our business being activists and being good people in the world. All right, so you'll have to excuse me because some of the stuff I want to show you is on my laptop. And so like trigger warning if you feel prone to seizures from flashing screens or whatever, because when I show you my screen, oh, it turned off. Hold on. It does kind of like a jittery flashing thing, which can be unpleasant for the eyes. So be warned, and don't look too long if it's a problem, or don't look at all if the flashing is going to bother you. But I want to show you some examples of when I was in school studying art therapy. And disclaimer, I am not an art therapist, and so I know some things about the therapeutic side of art and about the field of art therapy, but I'm not in any way claiming to be an art therapist here, and I'm not prescribing any art therapy. But I do think there's concepts that we can take and use as lay people in our own lives without needing to have a professional art therapist right there. Although if you can, I totally think that would be awesome. So go get that for yourself. Could be super helpful. But for those of us who are just working at home, these are just some things that I was exploring when I was studying that. But yeah, I'm not claiming to be an art therapist here, and that's not what this is. But these are creativity prompts that can help us deal with our emotions and address bigger things that are hard to, not everything can come out via words. So I talk a lot about nonverbal ways of knowing. And I think art is so huge for grappling with big emotions that we can't put words to, or that we can't talk about in therapy or to our loved ones. We can't even necessarily write about them. There's a different place where they're living in our bodies maybe, or where they're just living in our psyche, but we can't put words on them because they're too big for that, or they're too unfamiliar for that. So creating art about certain feelings that we're having can help us get it out. And then it can help us start to create a language around it. So maybe you don't have words for something, but then you like express it through some kind of artistic medium onto a page. And then you start to get ideas and language from like dialoguing with that art, or asking it questions, or, letting it inform what comes next. And then you're kind of going back and forth. So I'll show you some examples of what I mean. So this picture, this is one that I made in art class. I hope you can see it. It was really big. It was like the paper was taller than me. So, or almost as tall as me. So we're talking like 4 feet there, I think. So not taller than me. I'm like 5'5". Anyways, and this was something that was super therapeutic, because I really tried to get my conscious, what's the word? I didn't manipulate it too much. I just let myself feel feelings and get big and just start to paint. And what came out was kind of interesting and dark, and I didn't make it mean anything until later. I just started to get curious about it, and I let it sort of, I don't know, I just got reflective with it and sat with it and did some writing about it later. And it was super awesome. It actually spoke to a lot of the stress that I was feeling while being in school, a lot of insecurity. There was some body image stuff. But again, the point here that I'm showing to you and offering you to practice for this week, for your Try It Tuesday, is to come to the page with some sort of big emotion and try to drop the language and drop the words around it, and just let what wants to come out. And then later look at it and get curious about what it might mean. But don't start there. A lot of times when we think I'm going to make art now, it's like art with a capital A, and it has to look like something, and it has to be like this influence, or it has to be good, and we're judging it before we even get it out on the page. Or we have a vision for a thing, and then we're just like focused on making that image in our minds come out. And so this kind of practice that I'm offering you is just about like start with the feeling and then just let it rip. And then not having a plan for it and not judging it while you're making it is so crucial here. So that was really fun. And it felt, if you're doing this right, which by the way, there's no right or wrong way to do this. But for me, when I know that it worked really well, or that I was really successful as far as just letting it flow, was that I feel release after, that I feel lighter after. And I think that can really help us, especially in these times. So let's see. So then this stuff too, like letting myself just explore symbols. I'm really obsessed with hands. I'm committed to drawing a hand a day. And it's all I wanted to draw and have wanted to draw for a couple years now, actually. And so just letting myself do that. And that's really interesting, because later you start to learn more about symbols. Like you might be compelled to draw a certain image or symbol over and over again. And then later you read in old spiritual texts or books, or just the synchronicity of things coming your way. You start to learn what eyes mean, or what hands mean. one piece of information that I found interesting after my obsession with hands started to reveal itself, I guess, and I started to indulge that more, was this idea that there are chakras in our hands. A lot of us might be familiar with the traditional, I think, 7 chakra system that run along this main meridian. But then I read somewhere that there are chakras in the hands, and I heard about, I started to think more about this idea of how we can heal with our hands, or how hands have been associated with healing. And then I read this story about the handless maiden, which is an old tale, and I read in Women Who Run with the Wolves, Clarissa Pinkola Estes was talking about the symbolism of hands. And so it just turned into this whole awesome rabbit hole for me to jump into. And then in turn, learning about that stuff started to give language to these parts of myself that wanted to be expressed or known that didn't formerly have language. So again, if you're using art to practice navigating big emotions or big world events or traumas, let yourself get really curious about repeating motifs or symbols that want to come up, and like trust yourself and allow yourself that curiosity to explore. So I think, if I remember correctly, oh yeah, I did a series where I let myself be drawn to a color. So this is something you might try too. Like, think about what color, like if you're feeling or emotion that you're having right now had a color, what color would it be? And then let yourself make the gestures that you want to make. So here, each of these pieces had 2 parts. So I drew the visual representative thing, like this is a hand with an eye in it. And then I let the colors kind of just express the emotion. Like if I looked at that image, what feelings was I having? I think this was about anger. And that's how I express that on the page. And I know that a lot of us are feeling a lot of fucking anger right now for very good reason. And so finding a way to let that out by choosing a color and then choosing gestures that you think, I keep trying to point at this, that might express that. Like this, I remember was pain points, like drawing that feeling where anger sits in my body. And this is a great practice too when you're making your art and you're exploring art as a way to sublimate emotion. And by sublimate, I just mean taking this thing from inside of you and putting it on the page so that it can like mellow or transform or exist outside of you and give you some relief. But this idea, it's just like getting the shit out, right? Oh, I think I lost my train of thought. Sorry. Oh, but when you're doing this, here it is. You can really tune into your body to inform what you're going to do on the page. So checking in, okay, where do I feel this feeling? Where do I feel this grief? Where do I feel this rage? What does it look like? This is a great practice too. And that's how I was doing these kind of shapes. If I tuned into where the anger was in my body, if I had to give it a shape, that's the shape I would give it. I remember feeling like it was sharp and pointy and hot. So doing that kind of work. Yeah. And then I made one where I was exploring green. And I think that was more about sadness, and potential and tenderness. And so that's what I was going for there. Eyes are a big symbol too that I've been wanting to think about a lot and draw a lot. So letting myself do that. And you'll notice too, like a big piece of doing this work is letting yourself be experimental, letting yourself explore and not judging it, like I've already said. And then letting it evolve as you go. So you might start like with this one. I think I started with this softer, this is pastels, I believe. And then like from letting that layer out, then this whole other like really scratchy, angry layer came out. And that's what's really cool about this work too, is sometimes we think it's about one feeling like anxiety, and then we kind of like express that, and then under that it's rage, and then so then we let that out, and then under that it's fucking sadness, and then there's tears and we let that out, and then under that, as Pema Chodron would say, or other teachers of Eastern spirituality and thought, there is spaciousness and the tender heart of joy even under this stuff. And so making art about this shit is such a good way to just get it up and out. Like, let it exist. So much of this stuff has like messages for us or lessons for us or has a right to exist. And if we just try to like carry it or make it wrong or make ourselves wrong for feeling it, it just grows and it gets worse, and like it feels worse in our bodies. And there's just something so powerful about letting yourself express whatever it is you're feeling. There's another one I was playing with That's like something dark and angry. I can't see what it says. Fundamentally flawed. Oh, yeah. That was some art about a core belief that I've been grappling with my whole life, basically, that I can remember, is this fear that I am fundamentally flawed and broken somehow. And I now know that's not true, but it still rears its head. And I know I'm not the only one that feels that way. So making art about that was super helpful and still is. This isn't a one and done thing. That stuff you saw already. I want to show you. Okay, so this is a progression, like how I was talking about layers and layers and layers. I came to this project feeling super upset, super angry, depressed, and didn't really know why. It was just a lot, right? So I started with this one. And again, sorry for the weird format here. I'm doing the best I can with the tools I got. So that was just a lot of shit. That was more about just getting the gesture out. And that's what's so powerful about using art to express emotion is it's less about the final product often as it is about the process. And so choosing mediums that let you get after what you need to get after. So if I'm feeling very angry, like I need to make stabbing gestures or like big marks, give yourself the space to do a big mural, like get butcher paper, get a board propped up on a fence outside, like get big if you need to get big. Sometimes when things are overwhelming, I intentionally want to do really small work because that helps me feel in control. So thinking about the space you're taking up, and then also think about using a medium that supports the gesture you need to make. So when I'm using pastels, that's not going to serve big anger and rage as like a cattle marker would, or something that can handle a lot of pressure and force. So when I'm doing stuff where I really need to just fucking get it out, I find crayons are really good because I can just go really hard and it's just that wax and it withstands that pressure pretty good, although I've broken plenty of crayons. And yeah, these things called cattle markers, I don't know what they're called at art stores, but they're real thick and kind of oily and you can just go at it. Paint can be good for this if you want to just splatter paint. If you feel like you want to get messy, you can consider that. Sometimes you feel like your emotions are too big and you don't want to have it all over your hands. So markers might be cleaner for that. So there's all kinds of ways you can think about what would best serve you and explore and experiment for sure. But this one I was angry and needed to get some shit out. And I think you can see I was using crayons and stuff. And all up in there is when I was scratching it too. I was figuring out new ways I could make marks with just my fingers and scratching off some of the layers of wax. But to bring it back to what I was talking about specifically with this was the layers. So I filled this page and I got that out and then I made another one. And you can see here, it's less dense, but there's still a lot of frenetic energy and a lot of darkness and a lot of anger, but you can see some colors were starting to come into. And I try to tune in when I choose my colors too. I think I mentioned this. If I were to look in this feeling that I'm feeling, and maybe I can't even name it, but can I think of a color? And it's not even so much what color is this feeling, but it could be what color does this feeling want to express itself in, if that makes sense. It might sound a little woo, but I promise if you try this, well, that's why it's Try It Tuesday, right? It's don't take my word for it ever. But if this is interesting to you, you might consider trying it. And I straight up challenge you to try it. When I bring it to a Try It Tuesday, I'm saying, hey, try this at least once this week and then tell me how it goes. So anyways, that was layer 2. And then I kept going and that was layer 3. And you can see it's less scribbly. It's less sharp. There's more color. You can see I'm illustrating the spaciousness that I started to feel. Each layer got a little more open, got a little more chill. And I can still remember how I felt when I was making this stuff. And then this was the last one and it was just one color. It was yellow. And the word that I wrote underneath it, I don't think you can see, but it says release. And I really felt released. So I just wanted to show you some examples there. And then I've also got, so I've been doing this stuff for a long time. And I wanted to show you, this is from a journal that I started in 2012. And I remember, you can't really see, I think I covered it up. Oh, or this was a piece of it. You see how that's a skull? I was trying to sketch a skull and there's an eye there and that's the nose and those were the teeth outlines. And then I just gave up and just wrote the letters, no, I can't draw skulls because I was feeling really insecure and I couldn't draw. letting your art therapy practice, not officially art therapy, but art in a therapeutic setting, maybe, or for release, you can let those insecurities out. You can illustrate that. Like this one, I drew a pattern of a sleeping bag, and it was something about get cozy and go to sleep, but then wake up. And so I was thinking, I was addicted to drugs at the time. So I was thinking about all these times I was trying to be cozy and wanting to go to sleep, but also struggling to want to wake up, like to be alive. And then there's just one more I'll show you in here where I was just letting myself play with the color. And it was Prussian blue. And I said on it, I don't know where Prussia is, but I know I'm blue. So it's all kind of like nonsense, right? But it's not for anyone else. It was just for me to try a different way of expressing my feelings. And I will tell you, I know that it works, and I know that it's powerful because years later I can look at this and remember how I felt, but most importantly, remember that I felt better after making this art. And here's one where I just wanted to do a soft, sometimes you just want to take like one color and just do soft gestures just to like get something out. It doesn't have to be anything. It doesn't have to be all layered. It can just be a quick whatever. Like I just need to smear this out. And then last thing, I know this one's getting pretty long, so thank you for hanging in there. I hope this is helpful if you're watching this. I gave myself permission to play with fabric and sewing recently and creating new art. And there's something going on with these that feels very cathartic, and I can't really explain it. Some people who have seen these have understood. They're like, I can feel the feelings that are in there. But this new series of stuff that I'm making is about trying to physically create an emotion. So there's this one. It's fabric with some stuff that I found at a construction site, and I crocheted it into a chain and then sewed it in a spiral. And this one's about clarity. And this one is interesting because as I was making it, I could feel tears and like this weird tenderness within myself, and also like it was getting something dark out of me. And so, yeah, I think this one is called Confusion. And I think the reason I felt tears and compassion was because confusion is just such a shitty feeling. And it's a lie. Like, here comes the coaching. I mean, this is all about coaching. I'm a creativity recovery coach. But the coaching piece of this is just around like oftentimes we tell ourselves we're confused and we feel an inertia and paralysis from that. But we always know a way forward if we tune in and drop in and are willing to try something. So that's a huge relief for me. But if we're believing the lie of confusion, it's one of my least favorite feelings. It feels so stuck and lost and trapped. So it was cool to make a piece. I'll just show you again. This is all like lace and mesh and stuff. And this is like wire and gold sequins and flaps of things. But yeah, the takeaway here is just how I want to encourage you to take what is inside and put it outside somehow. And then you walk lighter and more freely moving forward, which is so amazing. And such a great way that we can be better allies. To bring it back as I'm winding it down and ending this video, it's always a good time to learn how to manage our emotions and learn how to take care of ourselves. But especially now, if you are engaging in the work of anti-racism and looking at your own shit as a white person and going to protests and being an active ally and just facing these things that are ugly and hard to face, and you're bombarded by the news and you're grieving over George Floyd and countless others, not only is it good for us and for our souls and our hearts to stay on top of this shit and manage these emotions, but it also makes us better allies, and it also makes us show up for others better in the world when we're handling our own shit. So this idea of self-care being that really good kind of selfish, or as Audre Lorde said, self-preservation is a radical act. I'm paraphrasing there, but when we are taking good care of ourselves, we're better able to show up in the world and take care of others, is the point there. And so I'll leave you with one last one that I'm working on that feels a little lighter. I haven't decided what the feeling is yet that this named, but I can tell you that it has brought me so much joy just to work on, and just exploring, like, again, what's inside, and giving it an outer form and outer expression has been so cool, so healing, so helpful, that I really hope that you go and try it and let me know how it goes. And if you want to work with me one-on-one, you can. All you got to do is shoot me an email. I am at amandagoldmakesart@gmail.com, and we can get on the phone for free to talk about your goals, and if what coaching can do for you, and if we're a good fit and all that stuff. So in the meantime, hope this helps. Hope you really try it. And I will see you Thursday with my Thursday thoughts. All right. Take care of yourselves and each other. Talk to you next time. Bye.